In The Path of Celtic Prayer, Calvin Miller outlines 3 steps to confessional prayer. The first is a desperate longing for God. The second is agreeing with God that our sin is sin, that we are not perfect beings. The third is serving God in the world in response to our forgiveness. As with Buzz, it's the middle step that most of us find so difficult. Yearning never ceases. We just give it different names. These days, people say they're spiritual but not religious. Serving God is a common response for those who, after confession and forgiveness, express their gratitude by offering their obedience. But agreeing that sin is sin, it just seems so passé. We don't even like to say sin out loud. It is, in these days of relativism and political correctness, the ultimate trigger word. And this isn't only a secular attitude. Every day I find some way to justify the thoughts and deeds that keep me apart from God. While I may admit that I have faults or things I'm working on, I mostly live my life in denial of the full weight of my brokenness. And yet I feel that weight, even if I don't admit it or acknowledge it in the moment. In fact, I often feel it the most after it's been lifted via confession, just as the pressing burden of a stuffed backpack doesn't fully register until the straps slide from our shoulders at the end of a long hike. This is because, although sin often reveals itself in the things that we do, its root lies in who we are. Let's back up then and consider sin not from the perspective of the fire and brimstone preacher who focuses on offensive acts, but from the perspective of the Apostle Paul, who understood the existential state of unease from which sinful behavior often springs. In Romans chapter 7, verse 18, he confesses, "I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out." Just as nearly everyone agrees that there is something wrong with the world, we all know, when we're alone, when we do what we want at the expense of others, when we finally realize we're not the noble Buzz Lightyear we've tried so hard to be, that something is also wrong with us. Something in our very nature, no matter how hard we try, is preventing us from being in right relationship with God and in shalom with each other. Of course, the good news of the gospel is that Christ's work on the cross has paved the way for such relationship to be restored. Romans chapter 7, verses 24 and 25. As we wait for the day when we will finally enjoy the full presence of God, the reality is that our sin continues to keep us at a distance, and so confession is a continual thing. And where does such confession take place? Prayer. The art of confession. Don't worry, this chapter will not be a catalog of movie characters behaving badly and being punished for their actions. I don't favor the fire and brimstone approach. And anyway, sinners watching other sinners on screen, cheering for their castigation, strikes me as a deeply hypocritical endeavor. More interesting, and more evocative of the gospel of grace, are those films that acknowledge a separation from God and a desire to live closer to Him. We need to go deeper than simply going through a list of personal violations of rules, writes Kenneth Leach in True Prayer, looking more closely at the corruption of the will than at the particular external acts committed. Sin does not consist only in transgression of external laws, but in an inner alienation of the personality from God. What does that look like on screen, if not a story that repeatedly raps its characters on the knuckles? Well, I would offer that films that function as confessional prayers are, instead, those that capture epiphany moments for their characters, instances when they admit and fully bear the weight of the reality that they themselves are inextricably tied up with the awfulness of the world. It's when they acknowledge that they've messed up because they're messed up, and that they're incapable of correcting things on their own.